meditative, whatever that means to you. I often like upright, but not uptight, that we are holding ourselves in a way that feels like we are able to hold ourselves. And I think there's deep meaning to that, that we are enough. And so by sitting in a way that we're not slouched over, we're actually telling ourselves that we can handle our own experience. Now, of course, if you need to lie down, that's a perfectly fine meditative posture as well. And so holding this posture, and of course, if you need to move at some point during it, you're welcome to. The point of at least the style of Zen meditation I'm trained in, the point is not to show how tough you are. The point is to show yourself that you can hold yourself and that you can recognize when it's time to move as well. So we're not just trying to muscle through any discomfort. If you need to move, that's certainly fine. So let's start by checking in with our bodies. Where is our balance? How do we feel our bodies in this moment? Do we feel anxious or uptight? Is there a way we can perhaps move to help us feel a little less tense? And now check in with your mind. What is its quality in this moment? Is it tense and constricted? Is it jumpy and agitated? Is it calm? Is it curious? We're not trying to force it to be something it isn't currently. We're just trying to recognize how it is. And so with that, take 3 deep breaths, feeling them all the way in and all the way out. And notice where you feel your breath most keenly. Perhaps that's at the abdomen or the chest or the nostrils or the throat. Wherever it is, for the next little while, I'd like you to place your attention there and just feel the physical sensations of your breath moving in and out. Your eyes may be open or closed. If open, have them a little down and unfocused. If it helps to settle your mind, to label the in-breath in and out or rising and falling, you can do that. But focus particularly on the physical sensation of the breathing. We often think of the breath as one thing, but in fact, it's many parts. Of course, there are no parts, but you can think of it as the start of the in-breath and the middle of the in-breath and the end of the in-breath and the pause at the top of the breath and the start of the out-breath and the middle of the out-breath and the end of the out-breath and the pause at the bottom. And you'll notice that these each feel different. If your mind wanders, and it will, that's its job. We just try to notice as soon as we can that it's wandered and smile at it like we would a little puppy that we're trying to teach to heel. And gently bring it back and pay attention again to the breath and the physical sensations of the breath. Now, along with feeling the breath and the movement, see if you can also hold in your awareness the sensation of your weight, noticing the feeling of the heaviness of your body as it touches the chair or the cushion or the floor, that we are connected to the earth. Notice that you can feel grounded and settled, even though you're still moving and you're feeling the breath and the motion of that. And now I'll ask you to try to hold one more thing in your awareness at the same time. So you're feeling the constant motion of your breath moving in and out. You're feeling the settled and connectedness of the weight of your body pressing into your chair. And if you're in a seated position, notice also the rising up that happens at the same time as the deep connection down. There is both a downward feeling and an upward feeling, a connectedness and a rising upness. Stillness and movement. Notice how you can paradoxically be all of these at once. Grounded and uplifted, still and moving. Now I'll ask you to notice one more paradoxical pair of things that you might experience at this moment. Can you notice the fundamental okayness of this moment? That here you are in a place of safety with the ability to focus on your own experience and allow yourself to be here and allow the world to be as it is in this moment. And my guess is the last thing I said also made you aware of the paradoxical anxiety you may also be able to feel. That there is stress, but there's also the sense of being all right. We often get locked into this feeling that whatever feeling we're having is the only feeling we're having. My father says there are two types of people in the world: those who divide the world into two types of things and those who don't. And most of us are in the first category, and we do that with our own experience. We notice that we're stressed, and all of a sudden that becomes the only thing we are, or at least the only thing we're paying attention to. But in fact, at the same time as the stress, there is this sense of being alive and being all right. They don't have to be contradictory. And I'd like you now to turn your attention a little more toward the stress or anxiety that you might have been feeling today. And one of the problems with emotions is they make us feel so separate, or the difficult emotions at least. I'd like you to recognize that everyone here sharing this time in this meditation with you also feels anxiety and stress that is similar to yours. The particulars might be different, their story may be different, but we share this. You are not alone. And so, thinking about if your best friend or your child or your pet was really anxious and stressed, what might you offer them? What might you say to them? It might be as simple as, I'm here for you, or as vague as, it's going to be okay. Or it might be to say nothing, but to just gently hold their hand. And so, if it feels comfortable and appropriate to you, to put your hand or both hands over your heart and say to yourself whatever it is that you would say to a dear friend who's going through a difficult time. But you're saying it to yourself. I'm here for you. I know this is hard. And perhaps tie your phrase to your breath. That on the in breath, you feel the feeling, and on the out breath, you say to yourself whatever it is you would say to a cherished friend in a similar situation. If you're having a hard time coming up with a phrase, feel free to use any that I've said if they feel at all acceptable. You are enough. You can handle this. We'll get through this together. You're not alone. And now for the last minute, you can keep your eyes closed if you want to, or you can open them if you want to, but notice there are many other people here with you at this very moment on this call. And they also could use some comfort. So, whatever words you've been using to comfort yourself, to recognize that your own experience is difficult, extend that to the other people on this call too. If it helps to envision it as kind of a golden light flowing out from your center to envelop the other people here, letting them know you're here with them. They're strong enough and they're not alone. So share this warmth with them. And now notice that there are 15 other people wishing this for you. Can you feel it from them at this moment too? You truly aren't alone. And we can get through this together. And so now taking 3 more deep breaths, feeling them all the way in and all the way out, and releasing any tension that might have built up. And finally, checking in again with your mind. What is its quality now? Is it the same as when you noticed it earlier? Or is it a little more relaxed, a little more open, a little more spacious? It doesn't matter if it has changed or hasn't. We're learning to hone our perception. And checking in again with your body. And releasing the technique. Well, thank you all. I guess I'd be interested to hear a little bit about your experience with that meditation, if anyone would like to share. And I've previously muted you all, so feel free to unmute yourself and turn your video back on if you'd like to share.
I thought that meditation was really helpful, and I feel a lot better right now than I did prior to the meditation.
Well, thank you, Phil. I'm glad. This isn't a technique that requires a teacher or requires a group. So it's certainly something that you can do for yourself anytime it starts feeling a little too overwhelming. I guess I have a few things I'd like to say and then open it up for more general discussion, perhaps. A lot of people come to meditation generally, or to Buddhism or Zen Buddhism more specifically, perhaps, because they're seeking calm, they're seeking a sense of peacefulness. We even use the word Zen as if it somehow means calm. Finding your Zen, weird things like that, which actually makes no sense from a Zen point of view. But there's nothing wrong with that being our goal. And there's nothing wrong with that being something that we use to motivate our practice. What may be wrong, however, is the assumptions that are underneath it. And you may or may not share some of these assumptions, but 3 come to mind. First is that anytime we're feeling something bad, it means that there's something wrong and needs to be changed. And I think that's an incorrect assumption, because sometimes the situation just is bad. And it's going to feel bad, and that feeling badly is the correct feeling. And similarly, when we say things like, we have too much anger or too much anxiety or too much sadness or whatever it is, that's making an assumption that there's something wrong with you that needs to be changed. And again, I think that's an incorrect assumption. And the third assumption that we might hold is that if we were awakened, if we were enlightened beings, we wouldn't feel these things. And that's, in my experience, not that I am an awakened being by any stretch of the imagination, but uh, my experience and the experience of people I know who are farther along the path, that's just not at all accurate. We feel things more, perhaps, because we're not trying to avoid our feelings the same way. So the problem isn't having these emotions. The problem isn't the emotions themselves. The problem is that we have a difficult relationship with them. We have a lot of ways we interact with our emotions. Sometimes we want to indulge them. Sometimes we ignore them. Sometimes we resist and fight them. And sometimes we just act out because of them. Okay, let's look at that list. Sometimes indulgent and sometimes ignoring and sometimes fighting with. That sounds like a really dysfunctional relationship. Uh, I've been in that relationship. Uh, it's not a good relationship if we're going, back and forth on and not being honest with our emotions. So what could it look like instead? Well, again, we could just put this back into a relationship type of context. If you had a relationship with another human being, that person would want to be paid attention to. That person would want to feel seen. That person would want to feel validated even when you don't agree. So could we do this with our own emotions as well? Can we feel them, acknowledge them, listen to the wisdom they have? And the Buddhist view on emotions is that emotions have co-emerging properties of wisdom and confusion. And so the clearest example that I usually use is of anger, that the wisdom of anger is clear seeing, that we are seeing clearly in this moment something is wrong. There is injustice that we're perceiving. There is something harmful happening that's not right. What's the wisdom of anxiety or fear? It's not just one wisdom, obviously, because it's always dependent on what's actually happening in the moment. But in general, the wisdom of fear is that there is a potential for danger. And so you should be paying better attention. Isn't that interesting? When we get really anxious, do we pay better attention a lot of the time? I was so anxious today. I just checked out as much as I could. uh, that's not really the right thing to do with anxiety. That's ignoring its wisdom. That's acting out of it, out of the confusion side. Sadness. What's the wisdom of sadness? Again, it's not just one thing, but in general, it tends to be it's time to slow down. And it's time to focus on what you need. But often we don't hear the wisdom of these emotions and we let them close us off to the rest of the world and even close us off to ourselves. Now, maybe I hear you say, but the world is heartbreaking. Yeah, it is. Maybe you say, but I'm not in a position to actually make things better. There's nothing I can do. That's often true. So what do you do? Well, there's a Zen koan that says the whole universe is on fire. By what kind of meditation or samadhi, which is meditative concentration. By what type of samadhi can you avoid being burned? Does anyone have an answer that they feel willing to share? I'll pick on one of my students. Julie, the whole universe is on fire. By what samadhi can you avoid being burned?
I don't know. Being in the moment, being burned, I don't know.
It's halfway there. It's halfway there. Do you all want the answer? The whole universe is on fire. By what samadhi can you avoid being burned? Do you understand? If the whole universe is on fire, you're getting burned. So if we come to this practice as a way of just trying to force calm, we are not being honest. And Zen, as many of you have heard me say, is not pretending. That's one of my definitions of Zen, stopping pretending. So when you're burning, burn. We're not trying to paper over and pretend that things are okay or that we're feeling fine when we're not. Now, that said, you can also notice, even when you're feeling overwhelmed and stressed and burning, that you are still okay too. And that's the paradox of it. That we can burn and still be okay. So I'd invite your thoughts, reactions, questions.
I thought the beginning of the koan was the whole world is burning.
I've seen it both ways.
Well, but then I thought, perfect, I'll just leave the world, just escape into the universe. And then I found out, oh, the universe is burning too.
Yeah, but and even if that were the phrasing, I mean, we can't really escape the world, can we?
Not yet.
So all those emotions that I heard described have the same root, or maybe not. They all of them. The deepest is a love for myself, and just honoring that love for myself, and if I'm angry, then when I go looking at it, there's a love for myself there someplace. If I'm sad, there's a love for myself. If I'm anxious, there's a love for myself. So they all have, to me, the same, because I look for what connects. So for me, my emotions connect me to that love for myself.
I think that's fair, but I think it's incomplete, because I think these emotions can also often show our love for others. So our
But
anger may be about recognizing, one of my colleagues who's a woman of color posted this morning that 8 a.m. back to work in racist, fascist America. All those Black Lives Matter groups held in white churches this summer were really cute. You know, that's an anger because we care about others as well. So I think that, you know, we can be sad because we know that many of the policies that have been enacted in this country in the past several years have hurt others, even if they haven't necessarily hurt me. So I think you're right. I think that our emotions show our love, but I don't know that it's only our love for ourselves.
but if they hurt me, or if they hurt others, they also hurt me. That's the way the world, that's a fact. That's the way the world works. And so if others are hurt, then so am I. It's because there's hurt. Then the relationship and the connectedness is suffering.
Thank you.
I really like the emphasis on noticing that we're safe in present time. You know, my house is comfortable, I'm dry, I'm clean, food in my belly. And just noticing all the ways that I am safe right now. I found that very calming.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have a funny relationship with that thought, because partly it it helps me, and then it also sometimes makes me feel guilty because I'm awfully privileged to be able to feel that a lot of the time, when other people don't have the same safety that I do. But that doesn't mean that it's not worth connecting with and recognizing, and then trying to calm myself, because if I'm calmer, I can be of more service. And so I think that's valuable to reconnect with whenever we can, especially when we're feeling so disconnected or so disjointed or so off balance, recognizing that in fact we aren't off balance. All you have to do to not be off balance is sit down. And then if we can regain our own sense of balance, we become better able not only to manage what we need to manage, but become more available for others.
I was thinking about a well-known saying of Mr. Rogers: when you're talking to children, look for the helpers. And I want to just expand that idea to look for the love, even if I can't see it, even if it doesn't appear to be here, there is also love, even in the fire.
Thank you. How do you work with that practically? Where do you look to see it?
Oh, often my dog.
Sure.
Or out the window at the trees.
I suffered the most this time looking at the map and realizing the field of red around the little island of blue, and thinking, am I in the wrong place? Should I move to the field of blue? Because on the one hand, I feel that everything is perfectly fine when people are behaving civilly and nobody's bringing up sensitive topics to my face. But at the same time, this election in particular, I thought, but why? You know, like this, the same questions that people are suffering with. Why is it okay to support something that's done that's not fair? You know, that kind of stuff. And I haven't come up with an answer really. My only solution was that, you know, how do I build my own safety, and definitely not by worrying about it, but by keeping calm and doing my job. Because if I'm again, I'm privileged in the sense that nothing in the last 4 years has hurt me directly. But if there was some change that I desperately need, I thought the only way to do it is to do my job so that I can build that stability and move on. And from that stability comes my ability to help others, because it creates resources for me to help others. And that's really was my only kind of practical consolation to all this racing thought of how can, you know, that clashing with uncontrollable situation that is not what I wish to be, right? Okay, so that is what it is. What can I do? I can keep calm and carry on for myself, for my students in a way, by not bringing up anything about elections and just doing my job and that kind of stuff. I'm not sure how much it aligns with Buddhism, but that's what I was able to do. I go outside and plant some bulbs. It could be late, but I have hope for them for the spring, you know, because they're so real. And the pain from working in the garden is physically real, but not bad. So I feel it's somewhat of an escapism, not really facing emotion. It's substituting them with something else, but that was a coping mechanism.
I think, Elena, that's a perfectly Zen Buddhist answer.
Mm.
That you can't change the national politics other than you can vote, and once you've done that, you're done. You've done the thing you can do. You can't change other people's minds. So what can you do? You can take care of what you can take care of. And what do you actually have to do now? That's actually the perfect Zen answer, I think, that we focus back in on where we actually can make a difference. And planting bulbs is it's a great karmic metaphor, right? You're taking an action now that can have some beneficial, some benefit in the future. And part of that action now is not getting yourself so stressed out that you can't function. And so I think there's this assumption sometimes that our job is to ignore what we need in the service of others, or to always be making some grand gesture, when in fact it's usually the little things that are going to matter the most, and we have to take care of ourselves before we can be of real benefit to anyone else. And this, in fact, some of you have heard me talk about this, this whole Hinayana to Mahayana path in Buddhism. They're not different. You've got to take care of yourself first before you can really, if you don't clean up your own mess, and then you try to wade into someone else's, you're just going to make a bigger mess. So I think there's a deep wisdom in the way you handled that, and and in what you said. So thank you.
Glad.
Are there other comments or questions? So why don't we take the last 5 minutes to sit again together? So go ahead and take your meditative posture and check in again with your body. Maybe it's tired from having been sitting here for almost an hour. Maybe it's starting to feel a little more relaxed. Whatever it is, just notice it. And checking in once more with your mind, noticing its quality in this moment. Is it constricted? Is it jumpy? Is it relaxing? And placing your attention on your breath again. And see if you can notice again both the sensation of the breath constantly moving and yet your grounded connectedness to the earth. Your gravitas and your lightness. And I'll end with a contemplation that many of you have heard me do before. But if you think about the millions of things that have to go exactly right for you to live just 3 more minutes, and I mean millions, literally millions of things, from microscopic things of you have to have the right number of bacteria and the right balance in your body, and your body has to keep synthesizing the right amount of proteins. There has to be enough oxygen. To more macro things, the temperature has to be within a range you can survive. You have to not have a nuclear bomb go off right next to you. The sun has to keep shining. The earth has to keep spinning. You have to have enough food and water. It can't be too acidic or too base. All these things have to go exactly right for you to live into just the next moment. And this has always been true. Your entire life things had to go exactly right every moment for you to live to this moment. What are the odds of those millions of things continuing to go right moment after moment after moment? It's like the universe is conspiring to make you happy. And yet we're so anxious about the next moment. But our whole real world lived experience is that every moment has been enough. I'm not saying you've enjoyed every moment. Some moments have been horrible, but even those moments, you had enough. You were enough. Whether or not you believed it at the time, looking back, you can see that to be true. So I invite you, as we move forward into what is likely to be a stressful series of days in a highly stressful year. And if you thought 2020 was bad, who knows what 2021 is going to be? And no matter how bad it gets, remember, the universe is conspiring to make you happy. You are enough. You always have been. Thank you very much. And just two quick announcements before everyone goes. First, I've recorded this, and if you would like me not to use any portion of the recording for any reason, please let me know, and I will edit it out. And second, I'm happy to hang around and talk and answer questions if anyone would like to. But thank you all so much for sharing this time together and supporting each other.
Thank you. I have an unrelated question. When you recorded your audiobook, was it a special studio?
One time it was, and one time it was here in my house, my home studio.
It was the Buddhist 101 one.
That one I did here.
It sounds like it's in the studio. I'll have to ask you what kind of microphone you use.
Okay, I can give you that information.
Thanks. It's ridiculously like being in the room with a person.
Okay.
So, at times so realistic that I would have to stop and look around and be like, oh wait, I'm still listening to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
I have to say that when we did the meditation in the beginning, I had this huge, now I meditate and I'm always by myself. So, especially now, but, and I had been anyway, because I could never get anywhere to do it because of my schedule and things, but it was such a feel, and I've done with other recordings and this, that, and the other thing, but first of all, there was just this feeling of warmth, big warmth feeling, and I was suddenly, because it was you, I was suddenly back with my family, my parents, and every Uncle Joe, your father, you know, I was like I was held as a child, the good, you know, the memories of being a child and being taken care of, and, you know, all of that came. That was nice. That was really a nice feeling. And when you did the part at the end, to feel everyone else wishing us, each of us well too, and holding us, that was like, wow, I haven't had that feeling in a long time, ever. I mean, I never think of that. I'm giving out to my students, but it's like, oh yeah, right. It's coming back too. So that was really nice.
Well, thank you. I don't think it's all me, although I did throw in the quote from my father just for your benefit.
Well, no, the meditation, it was beautifully done. It was wonderful.
I think a lot of it's just the power of Sangha, that in a group, meditation has a different power. Many people find it has a different power because they really can connect with others and recognize that others are sharing the experience and wanting the same things. And in this case, with this type of meditation, when I ask you to offer it to each other, many people, do have a really powerful recognition that not only can they feel like they're giving something out, but they are sharing in that warmth everyone else is giving out.
Yeah, it's probably especially powerful now because we've all been so isolated, so much. I work alone, live alone. I'm not seeing many people except on Zoom and the grocery store and my neighbors when I'm walking, but I've sort of adapted to that, kind of, sort of, but that was the contrast of, oh my God, wow. Yeah, so thank you.
My pleasure.